going through some things, kind of done some changes. Had to move some people, got a new roommate, going through some changes, etc., etc. But I do plan on keep making these kind of things, except it's going to be more of a podcast kind of thing. I don't know if I'll be able to have the time and energy to do it daily like I did or like I did in June, July, but this might be like a weekly or hell if I'm really generous, I'm probably going to do it twice a week whenever I have the most available free time. I'm also probably going to do this in podcast form because why not? Sometimes you just want to listen to me on the go or argue why I'm wrong on the go instead of just having to rely on good old YouTube and a good internet connection. All right, and I'm also probably naming the show. It's probably not going to be called NFL Talk. It's probably going to be called something. It's probably going to be something different. It'll probably be in the title. And once I think it's a good title, I'll probably say it more and more on the show. So anyway, welcome, and here's probably what we're going to talk about today. Of course, preseason football being back. We have 12 games today, and a couple. I think one on Friday and two on Saturday. So this is going to be a real interest. So this is going to be real interesting week. Of course, no games on Sunday just yet, not yet. And of course, we're going to also talk about the Hall of Fame game that happened last week. Some of the rule changes and why I think they're really, really dumb. We're also going to go into some of the quarterback battles and I kind of rank them from least interesting to most interesting. I'm also going to talk about, about the Chargers. Are they really cursed, and as well as all the other injuries that have happened to the NFL. Also going to do some fantasy football takes because I love fantasy football. I also like talking about, and of course, I'm going to probably conclude the show talking about the bottom five and probably top five of wide receiver depth, and why these five teams have the worst wide receiver depth in the NFL. So anyway, of course, preseason football is back. We got 12 games today, one on Friday and two on Saturday. Preseason is definitely one of those things I enjoy watching just to kind of get a feel. Okay, if they do well in practice, how well they're going to do in in-game situations. Of course, you got even some players that do well in the game, but also practice poorly. I think those few players on this team. I think those players based on the based on the teams you follow. I also really enjoy watching preseason games. I do like watching all four of them, especially seeing all these players kind of battle it out, trying to make sure that they can make it, etc., etc. Make the team, etc. And I do find all four games essential because sometimes you need all four of those games, or if you play in a Hall of Fame game, 5 games to really get a good sense and a good feel to see are these the right players I want on my team? Are they really what I'm really hoping for? I know guys like John Harbaugh, coach of the Baltimore Ravens, thinks, we only need 2 because of an injury problem. Well, of course, injuries are going to happen regardless. And he's mostly worried about losing his current starters to injuries in a meaningless game. And I understand that standpoint, but of course, what about like training camp, OTAs, are they entirely worthless? Of course not. Of course not. And unfortunately, players do get hurt in those kind of things. And even in preseason games, players are going to get hurt. It's just one of those things that sometimes it's hard to kind of test that, kind of hard to plan for. And if injuries are the one problem, then yeah, I mean it sucks, but you just kind of have to persevere through it. I do like watching because sometimes you just want to see, okay, if this player goes down, are they going to step up to the challenge? How will they do against some of the best? How will they do against, regular starters? Etc. etc. If I am if my hand is forced to start them. I do find them all, and like I said, I do find them essential. I want to, because sometimes I can't even tell within 2 games. I don't know if Harbaugh can. I don't know if every coach can. If every coach tells the owner saying, "Hey, it takes me 2 games to further evaluate and see who makes the team and who doesn't." If every coach is like that, even down to the assistants and hell, even college coaches, then yeah, I would support that. Then yeah, I would support only having 2 games in preseason in favor of more regular season games as well as a roster expansion. But of course, I'll go in that more when I talk about the NFL rules later. But honestly, I can't wait for these preseason games. Ooh, I'm so excited! And is there a particular game you guys really want to watch? Is there a particular matchup that you're really anxious for? Who are the teams that you want to see do well and play out of their mind? For me, it's for me, of course, I always want to watch my Saints, of course. But of course, I would want to see the Giants and the Browns. I want to see Saquon. Hopefully, Saquon Barkley does play. I want to see him how he translates to the NFL. Another good matchup probably is the Titans and the Packers. I kind of want to see. I want to see the Packers' new secondary and how they do. I want to see Jackson King and Jari Alexander all perform well. Well, not just perform. I want to see how they perform, how well they do, because that's probably the future of that defense. It's those young secondary players, and also see how Josh Jones kind of performs and how he develops. Because right now they only got really one safety, and right now that's Clinton Dix, who I think is a very talented safety, top 5 in my mind. But say Josh Jones doesn't do well, he just kind of is iffy and no one really steps up, then they could probably sign Eric Reed, who I'm really shocked, who I'm still shocked, still hasn't been signed yet. It's pretty apparent. And there's also a few other guys I do want to watch. I also want to watch Patrick Mahomes perform. I mean, he did well in his last preseason game. He did pretty well last year preseason, but I want to see how he does this year. He's running with more. He's now the main guy. He's now the guy. He's not the clipboard holder anymore. He's now your starting quarterback. Hopefully for the next 10 to 15 years. And it's definitely interesting. Of course, tomorrow I want to see Sam Darnold. I want to watch Sam Darnold. I also want to watch. I'm also curious to see how Chad Kelly does. It's pretty interesting. And of course, the Chargers. I also want to see Josh Rosen and his Cardinals. I want to see all those rookie quarterbacks perform. And of course, one team I know everyone's going to be keeping an eye on is the Bills and their quarterback situation. I'm going in that further. Oof. And of course, let's talk about the game that happened last week. The Hall of Fame game. The Bears and the Ravens. Of course, Ravens won 17-16. This is definitely one of those. It was an okay game, of course. Hall of Fame game. They weren't going all out. And one thing I did notice about the Hall of Fame game was the rule changes. I know a lot of people probably thought how I thought about Lamar Jackson did. Kind of hard to say with him running with the threes. It's definitely it's not a lot I can take out of. I'm hoping that Harbaugh does eventually have him run with a lot of the first string members. Has him has him start at least for the first quarter and at least to the half of the second quarter. Because at least then I can probably get a good feel about him. I could probably get a good thing. But to me, he kind of played how he did in college. He was pretty scatty and all that kind of stuff. Probably have to rewatch those highlights. If you want a good recommendation, I would recommend Voch Lombardi because I think he has a great video on Lamar Jackson. I think he does a very good job with his breakdowns. And I think he probably has one of the better breakdowns I could honestly recommend. And of course, but back to the Hall of Fame game. Yeah, one thing I did notice were the rule changes, especially the new hit penalty stuff. And honestly, I hate it. I hate it so much. And here's the thing. I get what they're trying to do, trying to make it safer and reduce concussions, etc. But what they're doing is trying to ask players to do the physically impossible. Like they have to slow down and just kind of, watch where they hit. I mean, if it's a head pickup thing, that's something easily fixed. That's something that they can work on in practice. I mean, heck, I remember being told that in little league football by these coaches saying, hey, don't put your head down when you tackle. Keep your head up. You want to see who you're tackling. I mean, you don't want to see the ground. You want to see who you're looking at. You want to see the waistline of your player. I mean, that's little league stuff. But some of them are just, and it's specifically targeting, the safeties of the NFL. I mean, a lot of these safeties, what they do is that they're not always going to get the interception, but they want to try and knock the ball out of their hands. So sometimes you have so of course you have some contact going on. Sometimes a really good tackle where they're not aiming at the ankles or aiming at the head. It's a perfect. I think it's what I call a textbook tackle where they're hitting them at the chest or even hitting them at the waist. But because they probably put that out, they probably look down, probably like their head moves down a little, probably like 30 degrees or something, or something like that. They get thrown. The penalty gets thrown. Now it's a now it became a free first down, and it's just like, come on, let them play. Make a. If I get it, what they're trying to do, but for God's sake, give them some kind of breathability. Give them a breather. Let them have them try, do something where, they don't have to just kind of go, you don't have to basically tap on the shoulder and go, hey, can I hit you? Or something like that. I mean, a lot of these things of what they do, it's kind of disobeying the laws of physics essentially because a lot a lot of a lot of what the defensive players do is emotion. And from what I heard, this rule change was a response, to Aaron Rodgers shattering his collarbone. Oh yeah, can't hurt your storefront. Can't hurt the one that gives you TV ratings as well as jersey sales. But back to the rule change. I mean, it's just dumb. You're putting you're putting the defense at a disadvantage. And another thing, which I heard the NFL might try and crack down on, especially these refs. I really hope they don't because I think it's really dumb. Is that when quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers gets him in a hurricane, gets him to jump early, and then you have that free play. Yeah, they're trying to eliminate that. Once it happens, it's dead. 5-yard penalty automatically, etc., etc., etc. To me, that is such a momentum killer. Holy crap! I hate that. To me, these free plays where the quarterback just drop back and then throw a deep shot, it's one of the most exciting things I can tell you about. It's definitely exciting because say they do hit on it, they get a big gain or hell even a touchdown. It's exciting to watch. It's definitely one of those highlight makers. And guys like Aaron Rodgers make a ton. And guys, like I say, Aaron Rodgers does that a lot. And Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, every skilled Pro Bowl elite level quarterback does this. And it's exciting to watch whether you love the team or hate the team. It's great, but when you eliminate that, it's such a momentum killer. It helps the defense way more. I think that's probably the point. It's to help the defense. But come on. You know what's the best way to help the defense? How about teach them not to jump off sides? Watch the foot. Again, Little League. Again, this is Little League stuff. I remember my coach always telling me, "Hey, don't look at your opponent when you're, watch the football. Watch to see if that football moves. Once football moves, that's when you get up and go." And when you eliminate the free play thing, it's just dumb. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's such a huge momentum killer. man, it's gonna suck. It's really gonna suck. So yeah, of course you have the quarterback battles in the NFL, and I definitely think the worst one that's going on so far, or at least or at least worst one for the team, is definitely the Buffalo Bills one. This is one I really have to talk about just because how the Bills don't really have anyone stepping up. Everyone just seems to take 5 steps backwards each and every practice. I mean, they got a three-way battle between A.J. McCarron, Nathan Peterman, and first-round pick Josh Allen. Josh Allen was not a first-round pick in my mind. He was definitely a day 2 pick because I knew those accuracy troubles were not going to translate well. And what are the reports I'm seeing? He's missing easy throws. Screens, hitches, flats, 5 and ends. He's missing on the short throws. I mean, wow. If your quarterback is struggling to miss on those throws, you're fucked up a river without a paddle. Cause wow. And of course, they got 2 other quarterbacks, and they're not doing well. They have either incompletions, taking sacks, or doing dumb things. I thought Peterman was an okay quarterback. Yeah, so far he's just proven to be pretty poor at what he does. Yeah, shocker, I know. And A.J. McCarron, a guy that I thought, he just needs the right opportunity. Well, he's not doing well. I don't know if he's a poor practicer, he does better in games, or this is how he practices, and this is how he's going to perform in a game. Oh, I'm so going to pay attention to that game when it occurs, because let's face it, the Bills are not going to make the playoffs if these quarterbacks do not get their heads out of their asses. Plain and simple. Plain and fucking simple. And of course, you look at the other quarterbacks. I think probably the one that's probably most sad is definitely the Arizona Cardinals one, between Bradford and Rosen. I think the Cardinals are treating Rosen kind of like how the Chiefs treated Mahomes. He's just going to be the clipboard holder for the entire season and let Sam Bradford play the entire season. And from what I've heard, based on reports, he's playing very well. He's practicing very well, very accurate, etc. But here's the thing with Bradford. You kind of have a clock going, wondering, when's he going to get hurt? When is he going to be back on a trainer's table for a month or two, and how many games Rosen can start? Because I don't know if they'll actually start Sam Bradford at all this preseason. I think they're going to keep him comfortably on the bench during preseason, which honestly I do not blame them. He's definitely one of those quarterbacks that I'm kind of taking it one snap at a time. I trust him being a good quarterback, but I'm also kind of hoping that my trainer can get him back on the field as soon as possible. Now, quarterback battle, of course, the New York Jets battle between Darnold, Bridgewater, and Josh McCown. Josh McCown is honestly going to be the mentor to Darnold, and Darnold's definitely going to be the future of the franchise. I think he's probably going to be. I think he honestly could be the first quarterback starting, depending if Sam Bradford doesn't get hurt. If Sam Bradford doesn't get hurt, I think Sam Bradford is going to be the first quarterback to start. I'm sorry. I think Sam Darnold's going to be the first quarterback to start. One thing I did have a problem with Darnold was that he really struggles with his decision making. That's one thing I wasn't a fan of with Darnold. When I watched him in 2017 at USC, and his decision making was definitely his biggest downfall. He would just force his passes into these tight narrow windows, and in some cases it would either work out or fail horribly. And in many cases it failed horribly. It had an increase in interceptions. And I did like what Drew Margie wrote in his "Why Your Team Sucks" thing. If this were like a Lamar Jackson quarterback, he'd be ranked down as a day 2 pick. But since he was a classic drop back passer, it was nothing but high praise, etc., etc. He's kind of right. I think Darnold's probably gonna be one of those guys that he'll eventually start, but it could take a while. And of course, the last quarterback battle, which I will mention, is the Baltimore Ravens one. I know everyone's talking about Cleveland, but let's face it, it's Tyrod Taylor's for a season. Then Mayfield will stumble and struggle. I think the Ravens, for one, they want Lamar Jackson to start, but they're kind of being forced to play Joe Flacco. And this is one thing I have noticed about Flacco. He just stopped caring. He's turning into the next Jay Cutler. And you know what that means. Just put a cigarette in his mouth, a beer in his hand, and essentially you got taller Jay Cutler. I think Lamar Jackson could eventually start just based on his athleticism and how this Ravens team is not very good. This Ravens offense, at least, is not very good. I'm not a huge fan of Lamar Jackson. I think he's a prototypical mobile quarterback who needs to put on some weight. I think he still weighs 208 pounds. Yeah, unless he's 6 foot, he's going to get his ass kicked. He's going to get a lot of rib shots. But yeah, I think Joe Flacco's probably going to be the incumbent starter until the Ravens have forced their hand or he gets put on the trainer's table to start Lamar Jackson. And I'll just give a quick mention to the Browns. I think it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. I really love Mayfield. I think he was a starter, but the Browns just have a niche for screwing up every single quarterback that comes through those doors. They just can't develop a quarterback for the life of them. They just can't. They can't. And with Hugh Jackson as starter, he ain't gonna help. He ain't gonna help. Poor Baker Mayfield. He's just gonna struggle. He's gonna flop, flounder, and drop. Oh boy. Yeah. So, and of course, those quarterback battles they're probably gonna suck. They're gonna suck bad. But I'm very curious about these preseason games and curious to see how they all go. And of course, I just talked about stars. I'm pretty sure there's a couple I missed, maybe not. But hey, those are just the least I can probably name on the top of my head. So of course, now we talk about one team that I think is officially cursed. That being the Los Angeles Chargers. I almost instinctively said San Diego. I wonder if they are going to move back to San Diego. But yeah, the Chargers, I think, are cursed. Excuse me. Yeah, I think the Chargers are cursed. Seeing how the rapid amount of injuries that are happening to the Chargers team are starting to pile up and become pretty apparent. Of course, first they lost Hunter Henry in OTAs with a torn ACL. They recently lost Jason Verrett with a torn Achilles tendon in strength and conditioning. So yeah, his career is pretty much done. And let's see. Of course, you have Trevor Williams, who apparently hurt his foot. He was remember a tweet I saw, he was put in a boot. He was put in a walking boot and also had crutches. He's not necessarily done for the season. He's probably out for a few weeks. He'll be back, but still, they're probably hoping that he can be back for the start of the season because he's actually a really good corner too. And especially with Verrett gone, they need some help. They really, really do. And of course, they had another loss. I think they had a tight end be out for the season outside of Hunter Henry. I forgot his name. And of course, Joey Bosa got hurt. Of course, don't know what the extent is or how long it is. But of course, those 5 Charger fans are probably grabbing their nearest booze and drinking heavily. Oh boy. So yeah, are the Chargers just cursed? Are they just going to be hurt from now on until the end of time? Are they just going to never be fully healthy? Because here's the thing, I do like the Chargers. I wish nothing but the best for them, but man, oh man, oh man. They just cannot get a good... They just can't get the good luck that they need. They can't just get the players... They can't just get all these players healthy. I mean, they're probably going there hobbled, probably with at least 5 different UDFA starting. I mean, it's pretty apparent. I mean, they were my dark hole. They were my dark horse Super Bowl team, but man, it's just man. Oof. I don't know what else to say about this team. I mean, they have depth throughout. I think one thing I did talk about in my when I broke down the Chargers that they have great wide receiver depth and great cornerback depth, and that they could afford to lose one guy the entire season, and they would be fine. They lost for Red for the entire season for cornerback, so that's that. Now they have Hayward, Williams, and King. Well, then Williams gets hurt. Now now that becomes a problem. Now they're probably going to be forced to start some UDFA going up against freaking Sammy Watkins, Demarius Thomas, or even Amari Cooper, and might get thoroughly screwed. And of course, Derwin James started off on a puff for the first couple of weeks. He's off of it now. He passed his conditioning test, and now he's practicing with the team. Hopefully, he turns out to be something. Because if he doesn't turn out well, if he turns out to be this horrible, horrible setback, then what else are you going to do? And of course, the offense, I think it's very talented. I love the receiving depth. I like the running backs. I think the offensive line could be top 5. Could be a potential. I'm sorry, not top 5, probably top 10. But come on, stay healthy. Hopefully, Forrest Lamb does well. Hopefully, Dan Feeney stays healthy. Hopefully, Mike Pouncey doesn't get hurt. Hopefully, your tackles can stay healthy. It just always feels like it's one thing after the other. It's pretty apparent of what we're getting from this Chargers team. Very talented, just can't stay healthy. And do you really, and with all these injuries happening, do you really think that they'll stay as your division? Do you think they'll win the division still, or do you think that all these injuries are gonna bite back? Because, man. And there's one more team I do want to talk about. I didn't put in here, but I'm gonna go ahead and talk about it. And that's, of course, for now, Oakland Raiders until they move to Nevada and become the Las Vegas Raiders. And is John Gruden systematically tearing his team apart? Because all these reports with Khalil Mack hasn't met with the team. He hasn't met with Gruden yet. And now there's all this talks about trading. I mean, what? Why are they even considering for a split second about trading Khalil Mack? I get it. He's probably unhappy with Gruden and all the things he's doing and everything that's going on. I think Gruden's just a wee bit out of touch. Probably a lot of out of touch with the team. All these things. He signs a lot of, players that would have done well back in 2011. I'm surprised he hasn't called up Marcus Colston from retirement yet. Seeing how he gushes about him more and more each time. I'm surprised he hasn't called these aging players that are clearly out of their prime. Hell, I'm surprised he hasn't even called Megatron yet and worked out a deal with the Lions to try and get him back. Try and get him back onto the field. And of course, Martavis Bryant's struggling, but I do want to keep talking about Gruden. Do you think he's going to be a reason why the Raiders are going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL? Do you think he's systematically kind of dragging his team down? Do you think he shouldn't have gone back into coaching? Kind of stayed with broadcasting? Because from what I'm reading, Gruden is not helping this Raiders team. He's hurting them. And to think, for even a split second that you would trade Khalil Mack, if I were Mark Davis, I would go up to the GM and say, if you still have that thought about trading our franchise player, our face of the franchise, our the best defensive player in the NFL, period, if you even think about trading him, you're fired. That's what I would do if I was that weird haircut shaped Mark Davis. I'm gonna fire that GM myself, because there is no way I'm trading Khalil Mack. I would rather work with Khalil Mack rather than work with Gruden. That's just honestly my opinion. And of course, and of course, going back to the script, of course, we're talking about all the injuries that have occurred throughout the entire that have occurred so far. I mean, hell, Jack Muir, Colts guard, traded was had retired because of all the injuries. Linebacker Jake Ryan hurt his knee. He's out for the season. I think they officially announced that it's a torn ACL. Starting quarterback Ross Cockrell for the Carolina Panthers broke his tibia and fibula. He's out for the season. Of course, Darrell Williams dislocated the right patella and a torn MCL. He's indefinite. Elijah McGuire broke his foot. He's out for a few. He's out for a few weeks. You also had a few more players who had some injuries, some torn ACLs. You had like Fozzie Whitaker, torn ACL. I think Panthers also lost another offensive lineman for the season with a torn ACL. I mean, wow. I think only one preseason game happened, and of course, all the injuries are happening through training camp, and just left and right. I mean, do you think there's a preventative measure to help these players not get hurt in training camp? Do you think there's a method you would use to try and help these players, to help these teams, have a full 53 roster? I mean, I think they're prepared to lose a player, say like how the Saints lost Travin Davis to a broken, Travin Durrell to a broken arm. I mean, he wasn't a starter. He was pretty deep. He was pretty far below on the wide receiver depth chart, but that was a loss they were willing to take. But of course, you have say a team like the Ravens loses a starting wide receiver, loses a guy like John Brown. I mean, what are you going to do then? You see how much that hurts. He's in all these injuries. I mean, it does hurt a lot when you have a starter lose. But what happens when you just have a depth player? Say a guy that's on the fringe of making a roster, or on the fringe of making a team, making a team in general. Hell, even a practice squad. Is that something you really should focus on, or is this more of a thing that really you're willing to take? Or because I know losing a starter hurts way. Because losing a starter hurts way more than losing a backup player. But still, every injury does affect you one way or the other. Affects special teams. Affects how they can function in your scheme, whether it's offense or defense. I mean, heck, we're bound to have more injuries come abound after this 3-day weekend. After these 3 days of football. Hopefully, these guys can stay healthy and play well. And of course, let's talk about the wide receivers. Well, before we talk about the wide receivers, there's one last team I want to talk about: the Cleveland Browns and how they traded Corey Coleman, and why they kind of suck, at drafting. Because, oh boy. So, the Cleveland Browns, I found an interesting stat on the Cleveland Browns. From 2007 to 2016, they had 13 first-round picks, and none of them are currently on a team. Honestly, the best player from that lineup is Joe Thomas. I think he was the best left tackle in the NFL when he was playing. And hopefully no one beats a snap record. I think he's really, really talented and really good. It was a sad shame to see him have him retire like that. But hey, your first injury, you're at that kind of age. I mean, you're kind of at a wall there. But still, I'm gonna keep going. Of course, from 2012 to 2016, they've had all those first round picks have not lasted more than 3 years with the team. 3 years. Let's take a look at those players. Of course, you had Trent Richardson, your first pick in the 2012 draft, lasted one season before trade to the Colts. Brandon Weeden, your second first-round pick. He lasted the team 2 years before getting cut. He's still in the NFL. He's with the Houston Texans, apparently, being the backup quarterback if Watson does not develop well. And of course, 2013, you have Barcavius or Kiki Mingo, last team 3 years before being traded to the um, before being traded. I think he was traded away to the New England Patriots, or he was cut. 2014, you had Justin Gilbert, lasted 2 seasons before being traded to the Steelers. Johnny Manziel lasted 2 seasons before being traded. Being cut. Before being cut. 2015, you had Danny Shelton, lasted 3 years before being traded to the New England Patriots. And of course, 2016, you had Corey Coleman. He lasted 2 seasons before being recently traded to the Buffalo Bills. And of course, 2017, you had 3 first-round picks. You had Myles Garrett, Jabril Peppers, and David Njoku. I want to hear your bets. I want to hear your bets to see how long those guys are going to last on the Browns. And it really shows the overall dysfunction. Ever since they came back into the NFL, the team was reinstated. They just have been hit with bad luck after bad luck after bad freaking luck. How bad must it be to be a Cleveland Brown? It shows they can't develop or can't even scout properly. And of course, 2018, they had 2 picks. They had Baker Mayfield and Denzel Ward. I wonder how long those guys are going to last on the Browns before being either traded or cut. It's really getting to a point where it's not even funny anymore. It's sad and depressing and pretty dull because it's predictable. I mean, so far, Myles Garrett had a nice rookie season, but guess who also had a nice rookie season? Trent Richardson. He had over 950 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns before getting his ass traded in week 2 to the Indianapolis Colts. So, how long do you think Myles Garrett is going to last? You think he's going to get traded anytime soon? You think he's going to last 2 years, 3 years with the team, or will they push it and make it 4? And how long do you think Njoku's going to last? You think he's going to last 2 years before being traded? Or Jabril Peppers, you think he's going to last 2 years before getting cut? And then, of course, you got Mayfield and Denzel Ward. How long do you think those guys are going to last? You think that they're going to last long? It really shows the problem they have with developing as well as the overall, as well as scouting in general. It just shows the overall. It shows the overall dysfunction. They can't scout, they can't draft, they can't develop, and they can't coach, they can't perform. It's not even fun. Like I said, it's not even funny anymore. It's sad, it's depressing, and you want to give this team a break. You want to have them have at least 2 to 3 seasons where they're just doing well and things are just going right. They're drafting well, they're developing, and they're doing very well. But no, it's on repeat, and it gets dull. And yeah, it gets dull. It gets incredibly boring. It gets incredibly predictable to see all these players perform exactly how you think they're going to perform. They're going to struggle. They're going to perform poorly. They're just going to have to be in rebuild. They're just stuck on step 1 each and every time. I mean, when are they going to blow up the roster again? It's hard to watch this team. And of course, there was this fun thing I saw on Twitter where, they missed out drafting Michael Thomas because of how well he's doing. Well, 5 other teams also missed drafting Michael Thomas, not just the Browns. Let's see. Of course, the Browns drafted Corey Coleman. Got traded in 2 years. Next was the Minnesota Vikings. They drafted Laquan Treadwell. How well did he do? He's been no more than a 4th-string wide receiver for the team. Struggled to grab the playbook from 2 different offensive coordinators, both Norv Turner and Pat Shurmur. And who knows if he'll ever be the starter with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs being the wide receivers. And who knows if he'll ever be more than a 4th wide receiver. Yeah, remember when he was ranked the number 1 wide receiver back in the 2016 draft? Memories. And of course, you got the Houston Texans, who drafted Will Fuller. He's been doing okay. He's been battling injuries the past 2 seasons. I think he mixed a mixture. I think he's either 8 or 10 games in the 2 seasons. He's been also no more than a deep threat, and also needs the right quarterback to work with. Considering in 2017 when he was with Deshaun Watson, he was averaging about he probably had like after every 2 catches he had a touchdown. Weird, I know. And of course, once Watson left, his performance dropped dramatically, and shows that really he's more of a deep play, big play setter, and a deep threat. Of course, the Redskins drafted Josh Doctson, and he was actually my favorite wide receiver. Of course, rookie season he lasted 2 weeks before having a ruptured Achilles tendon, and he's still trying to slowly but surely get back to how he performed at TCU. He's definitely trying to improve, but man, oh man, oh man, oh man, is this bad? But man, he's not really shown much. And of course, with Alex Smith as quarterback, who knows how well he's going to do. And of course, the first second round wide receiver. Of course, the Giants took Sterling Shepard. He was another wide receiver. Like he's done all right. He's the number 1, 2 wide receiver. Good slot wide receiver with speed. But let's face it, if they had Michael Thomas, they'd be on easy street. Imagine Michael Thomas and OBJ. Whew. Ugh. Yeah. They just need Eli Manning to show some signs of life, and whoo. But yeah, it's not just that the Browns missed. 4 of the teams also missed on Michael Thomas. It's just one of those things. And of course, when talking about wide receivers, we're going to take a look at the wide receiver depth and why. And here are my bottom 5 teams. I'm also going to give some reasons why. Of course, here my 5th worst is the Carolina Panthers. I know they just drafted DJ Moore, but let's take him out of the equation. Who else you got? Well, Curtis Samuel has yet to show any signs of life. I think he's still on a physically unable list or something like that, or NFI. And he was supposed to be this jack of trades. Well, guess what? He's a jack. He can do it, but he can't. But he's not really good at it. And I've yet to really see him do anything perform well, so that's pretty interesting. And of course, their leading wide receiver right now is Devin Funchess. They traded away Calvin Benjamin in the middle 2017 season, and they have Devin Funchess. He's not a mainstay wide receiver. I don't see him being like a Julio Jones, or hell, even being like a Megatron type, or some big, or hell, even a Marcus Colston type. This big body wide receiver who has decent speed and catch. I don't see that out of Funchess. I just see a run-of-the-mill possession wide receiver that would just be the 3 or 4 guy. He's not a star wide receiver. He's not a stud. He's just average in my opinion. Nothing standing out and nothing really mentioning. And of course, looking at the rest of depth, it's filled with a lot of 3s and 4s. I think Clay is probably the only other one, but I think he got hurt, didn't he? And the rest of our receivers' depth is pretty shallow. And considering the offensive coordinator is Norv Turner, and this is definitely not the quarterback you want to work with either. This is Cam Newton, the guy who's essentially a bigger, bulkier Michael Vick. In my opinion, yeah, he's a bigger, bulkier Michael Vick. In my opinion, loves to more known for his legs than his arm. Number 4, I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens, considering they basically had to pick through everyone's trash. They picked through the Cardinals' trash and got John Brown. They picked through the Saints' trash, got Willie Snead, and they picked through the Raiders' trash and got Michael Crabtree. And of course, they saw Brashad Perryman. And you know what the thing? Those first 3 wide receivers, Brown, Snead, and Crabtree, were all going through their worst career years. Crabtree had a high number of drops. Willie Snead had not only had a 3-game suspension, but was also kind of played out of the offense, outperformed by a couple other players like Ted Ginn and heck, even Brandon Coleman, and of course John Brown still battling his sickle cell trait. Missed a lot of games in 2016 and 2017. Still trying to regain that 2015 form where I think he had like 1,000 yards and was a good compliment wide receiver. So yeah, not really the best wide receiving core for a young quarterback like Lamar Jackson to work with, or hell, even really Flacco to work with. It's pretty bad to look at. I mean, they're pretty much hoping that all three of those guys can have a serious rebound, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I would not hold my breath. It's a weak wide receiving core that I would be utterly embarrassed to have as an offensive coordinator. Number 3, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills. Let's just take quarterback out of the equation and just look at the weapons he has to work with. Calvin Benjamin is trying to prove that he's a top-tier wide receiver. Yeah, you're a top. However, you're a top tier. Yeah, you're a top-tier wide receiver, right? If the top tier was a garbage can. Yeah, I think a garbage can is probably better wide receiver than you. He's very inconsistent. I think for one, he's not really motivated. I mean, hopefully he can help make these quarterbacks look better by comparison, but he's not really doing much. Of course, it's a trade for Corey Coleman, who's kind of a who's pretty much a one-note wide receiver, good for deep threats, and needs to improve his separation and his ability to get open. He also needs to improve just about everything. Zay Jones, I think I forgot what his problem was. I read something about him in the off season. Skip my mind for a second, but man, oh man, oh man, this is not a good wide receiving core for these quarterbacks. I think this is pretty average and run. It's a best average kind of just random cobbled pieces, but they really need another healthy Sammy Watkins wide receiver, just a big play threat, someone who can help these quarterbacks improve, who can work with him and just be overall studs, essentially. Number 2, San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, I'm going with San Francisco. This is a bad wide receiving core. I think they're just relying on a lot of guys hitting free agency and eventually signing them. But yeah, I think they got the quarterback, but they don't have the weapons. You got Pierre Garçon coming off an injury, Marquise Goodwin, who's good for one thing, running deep and fit in and probably going to catch a football. And it's just, you really don't have that Julio Jones wide receiver. I know they drafted Dante Pettis, but again, I'm not taking rookies into consideration. Who knows how they're going to do? Kyle Shanahan did well with Julio Jones, even though he only caught 5 touchdown passes, but he needs that kind of wide receiver that can just make everyone better, and he doesn't have that wide receiver. He doesn't have that wide receiver that makes everyone better. He just has a bunch of guys that need someone that can make them better. They need a quarterback that can make them good. They need a good complement. They need a guy who can help share the load on on some of the share the attention. I should just say share the attention. So yeah, Garoppolo might not have that standout season that people are probably predicting from him. And of course, number 1. This might shock some people, but I'm gonna go ahead and it is kind of a tough one, but I'm going with I'm gonna go with the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah, that NFC West team. It's not very good. It's not very good. It's not very good. This honorable mentions would be like the Miami Dolphins, the Arizona Cardinals, New York Jets, the New England Patriots. Yeah, I would put the New England Patriots on there. Actually, screw the Seattle Seahawks. Number 1's going to be the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, number one's Indianapolis Colts. Sorry, Seattle. Sorry, I gave you that scare, but yeah, I'm putting number one as the Indianapolis Colts, and here's why. Outside T.Y. Hilton, who's a great wide receiver, here's your next guy, Ryan Grant. T.Y. Hilton, Ryan Grant. I would put it lower, but I don't have a wide enough camera. But you have top tier wide receiver going as high as possible, Ryan Grant. Then you have, T.Y. Hilton. Then you have Ryan Grant, who's overall a nice, hard-working wide receiver, but he's not number two. You got a bunch of other players that you're just praying to God that can help mixture of rookies and second-year and third-year players. But come on, is this really what you want to give to Andrew Luck, who I hope can rebound well? Please. Is T.Y. Hilton and some scrubs? Yeah. So enjoy your wide receiving core, Andrew Luck. Enjoy having to throw to T.Y. Hilton 200 times a season. 200 times a season because, or should I say 300 times a season, because I don't know what you're going to get from these wide receivers. Hopefully, they sign Dez Bryant. That would make, yeah, for all the talks that either the Saints or the Browns should sign Dez Bryant, how about the Colts? How about you guys sign Dez Bryant? You could definitely need him. You guys definitely need him. Definitely. And of course, just about to wrap this up, we're going to talk. I'm going to do fantasy football. I'm going to do some fantasy football. I love this. I love fantasy football. And I don't know if you guys do it, but I love it like a charm. So, what do I think? So, who's my real sleeper quarterback watch? Of course, I do like watching Mitch Trubisky, but of course, I do want to see how Deshaun Watson does coming back from injury. I think he's going to be a very valuable quarterback. Number one. I think my number one quarterback is probably going to be Russell Wilson. I'm kidding. It's probably going to be Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I like Russell Wilson. There's nothing wrong with him. I don't think he's a bad quarterback by any means, but I don't think he's in a good offense. Struggling off the line, no real run game. Wide receivers after Doug Baldwin are pretty slim, but I think he'll pull something out and somehow still throw for 30 touchdowns and over 4,000 yards. I think he'll pull something out. I think he's now the main guy He's now the main guy in Seattle. And I really trust him. I really do like him. I think he'll do very well. I think one guy that might slip and fall will probably be Matt. I think everyone probably called it on Matt Ryan slipping and falling, and I don't know how big his improvement will be. But one sleeper guy but here's my real true sleeper guy, and that's going to be Phillip Rivers. I think with as deep a wide receiving core is, I mean, yes, Hunter Henry's gone. Sucks. However, he has four good. I can definitely see four receiver sets with maybe a receiving running back to probably make up for it. And he's got four good wide receivers: Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Tyrell Williams, and Travis Benjamin. Those are four good wide receivers to really, really work with. And of course, you got your receiving backs. I think. Melvin Gordon could sometimes be it, but I think it's really Austin Eckler. He's definitely one of those guys I think might be a good PPR ad in the future. And if there's a rookie quarterback, I would add and just put on the bench. Again, I'd probably either go with Jackson, Rosen, or Darnold. Those are just guys to probably hold on to if you have like an extra space or two. And if you're in a dynasty league, if you're in Dynasty League and you force my arm back and see which quarterback to take first, probably don't. I would go with Sam Darnold. I think he'll probably be starting before then. All right. So I'll just about wrap this up. That's about my fantasy football take. I'm probably going to go into it more and more as more games go on with more injury. When there's more injuries, especially regular season, probably with my since start. Probably go into more positions, etc., etc. And I hope you guys like this kind of format. These videos are probably going to might be a little longer, probably at minimum probably 50 minutes or so. But hey, this is definitely something I'm going to keep trying to do. I'm going to try and post. I'm going to try and be more committed to post these at least weekly. So until then, I'll see you guys next time.